Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Voices of EB. It's been a little while.
It has.
We have, of course, Rachel. I'm joining Rachel, actually. This used to be Rachel's kind of thing. So
Sort of.
I'm joining you.
Well,
and then
it's a team effort.
And then we have Kevin Lynn from East Brunswick.
Dr. Kevin Lynn, clinical psychologist, has graced us with his presence today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Pleasure. So, why don't you just get right to the point? Why don't you tell us why you're here?
Sure. So I'm here really as a parent. I have significant concerns about the special education students, especially in my case. I have a son that's in the preschool program, in the preschool disabled program, and I have a unique perspective because I have an older child who was in the same program, who's now in the high school.
What's the age difference between the older one who was in, like, how much longer ago?
11 years.
Okay.
11 years.
Okay.
Yes. So there's some significant differences, in the program, and it's having a big impact. Not just yes, on my son, but on the other kids, and I don't know that other families necessarily know that what should be available. That's not.
Isn't that often? You work in the education system. You see that on a regular basis too, is that unfortunately some of the parents don't know what to ask. Right? Or what they're supposed to know.
Especially if English is their second language.
That's another thing as well. And if they're new to the field of special education, they might not know what they're entitled to. So you do have a unique perspective on many levels, actually.
Yeah. And I will say right up front, the teachers are amazing. I just shout out to, all of, Jacob's preschool teachers. And I even hate to call them paraprofessionals because they're professionals and they're so important, especially.
They're just as essential as the education. They are just as much the education essential component as every other aspect.
100%.
I know.
Especially with the preschoolers. That takes a certain kind of someone. So, so I mean, the classroom, they're really doing some great things. What we're seeing is a lot of the other stuff.
Okay, so backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Now, I don't know, and I know you don't know either. So tell us a little bit about the preschool program itself, the preschool disabled program itself, how it runs, and then a little bit of the difference of the way it used to be and what you see are some of the the glaringly obvious differences to now.
Sure. Great question. So in New Jersey, every, child who's under the age of 3 that has any kind of developmental disability, speech delay, they receive early intervention services if the family reaches out and does that. So, and then generally, really on your 3rd birthday, you become part of the school district. So early intervention ends, and that's where you expect the school district to then pick up. And that can be ranging from ABA therapies, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all of that. And East Brunswick's, touted themselves for having a great preschool disabled program.
I've heard wonderful. I mean, I've heard that I never experienced it myself. I never spoke with people who really work there, but I've heard wonderful things about it.
We experienced it in my family 15 years ago, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's smart for the district to have a really good program because, the earlier you start the services, we know that just, once you start earlier, just those abilities and those skills start developing so much better and the trajectory is so much better.
Right. Early intervention is key. All the studies show that the earlier the intervention starts, the better off, the more success is shown. Yeah. Absolutely. So just really quickly, ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis, I know, obviously, for full disclosure for me, I am a degreed speech therapist. I practiced for 7 years, but then I went into the classroom, the special ed classroom. But a lot of my speech therapy was doing ABA in a school, in a public, self-contained school.
Sure.
So I do have that unique perspective, but explain for the listeners, for the viewers, what ABA is and why it's so essential.
Okay.
in this type of environment.
Right. So ABA at a preschool level, especially if you're talking about a child that's on the spectrum, it's a little hard to tease out sometimes with a 3, 4, or 5-year-old,
Right.
kind of where the delays or the gaps are coming from, right?
Which is why they just call them preschool disabled.
Right. So there's no category until you get to preschool,
Right.
until kindergarten. So, right. So ABA really at its core is the way that, it's a technique that allows individuals to work with these kids and kind of develop behaviors that really are the gateway to the other things. So when we talk about potty training, we talk about some of the basics. We talk about tabletop ready skills, ability to sit down and to be able to even start to work on some of the language, the speech therapy. Those you need those abilities to be able to sit and attend.
Right.
So ABA sometimes is really kind of the precursor to being able to really delve into a lot of those skills. So it's important, and it's not just that it takes place in one setting, really, because, you look at potty training, for example, that needs to be kind of worked on in a different way in a classroom versus the bus to and from school and then at home. So really ABA really can help bridge that gap because there's a certain kind of language and technique that you would use, whether it's home-based, school-based, or something else, that really can help make a huge difference.
So to add to that, one of the essential components of ABA is consistency.
Yes.
So ABA it's not successful if it is not consistent and if it's not generalized, right? Beyond just those isolated teaching, it needs to be generalized, transitioning, moving from activity to activity, place to place, allowing those therapy skills to happen in different areas, right? And in different environments. Am I wrong in that?
No, 100%.
Right. Okay.
Those skills are in order to delve in and really start to work on those skills, you need the ABA, the basics. Yes.
So now to piggyback on that, okay, so now let's talk about the differences that were there back then 11 years ago that you're not seeing now.
Sure. I'll start. The biggest one that I can see that's glaring is that when my older child was in this program, you're in a small self-contained classroom in the preschool. He also attended 𝐒𝐻 aftercare, which was located in his elementary school, and that involved all the students. So he was included.
Now let me ask you, physicality of the programs, was his preschool disabled program in his home school? Or was there a central location that preschool disabled programs were held?
There wasn't a central location. He was outside of his home school for a year.
Okay.
And then he was in his home school after that. It does move year to year.
Okay. It moves year to year, but that didn't affect his ability to be part of 𝐴SK, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter which school he was in. He was still part of 𝐴SK, and so were the other students, no matter where they were.
Yeah, as long as you signed up and registered like any other student.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So
and they were amazing with him. Like, they just, actually our babysitter now is someone that worked with our oldest when he was 3. So yeah, it just, it was such a great experience. And while, his preschool teacher was a world of wonder, Tiffany Bloor, if you're out there, she was great.
Shout out
but
to teachers.
Yes, but the 𝐒𝐻 was such a huge piece, for a child that wasn't making friends through elementary school. His friends at 𝐒𝐻 are still his safe people to this day.
Oh, wow.
As an 11th grader. Wow. Is the kids he was in 𝐒𝐻 with, because it was a little bit of a captive audience, but he had the kids that he was around there that maybe when he was in a self-contained classroom he wasn't having as much exposure. Mm-hmm. So it was really an important piece of his development.
And it was an important aspect where he was able to see typical role models, right?
Exactly.
Typical students who could model that behavior that he may not have been seeing that he was capable of doing. Preschool disabled classes are wonderful, but often there are some negative behaviors that may be displayed in those classrooms that you would like students to be exposed to typical behaviors that they could model or imitate.
Right.
You know, and that ask gives that opportunity that they may not have during the day.
Right, because he was getting some inclusion throughout the school day, but that was during math or language arts. Those aren't the most social times during the day.
Right.
So it's great to be included in those times, but it's a different kind of benefit, you know. So he's getting the academic exposure, which, you know, he might not have gotten in the self-contained, but the social piece is so important.
And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but from a parental aspect and a psychology aspect of it, there may be some areas where a student with disabilities excels in non-academic areas that can be displayed in these after-school programs and sort of open up a world for them socially that they can't be exposed to in an academic setting during the day.
Gives them a certain amount of confidence.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, so that, you know, if they're really good in sports and they're doing a kickball game and ask, you know, another student may be like, wow, he's really cool. I'm going to hang out with him tomorrow, you know, and lunch, even though I may not see him anywhere else in school, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
like really good unintended benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when we would go to, you know, school activities, dances, fright night, that kind of stuff. I mean, just he would beam when other kids would come up. and
That's
talk
what
to
I'm
him.
saying.
You know,
So,
yeah.
like, you're right. It's one of those unintended benefits
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily seek out or realize that is going to be there, but just incidentally it happens. So that is not available
No.
now.
Right. So that's changed. So we were very surprised when, you know, when my youngest started in the preschool program and we reached out to ask about, you know, registering. And honestly, we reached out initially to ask if our ABA therapist that we, you know, pay for privately that does home ABA would be able to kind of shadow, because that's part of what their agency does, is they don't just work with the child in the home, they work with them wherever they are. It's a day camp or wherever.
Which is a generalization aspect of the ABA therapy,
Right.
which
Exactly. It's huge.
exactly.
Because, you know, you can have certain behaviors at home in your comfort zone, but once you're out and about, we need those to kind of carry over a little bit. Otherwise, those socialization opportunities might not be a success.
There also may not be opportunities that you're exposed to in certain environments, so you bring them to other environments so that you can authentically learn about how to handle yourself in those experiences.
Right. And for us, honestly, the first and foremost was potty training, because then that was always the thing, even back then, was that you did have to be potty trained to be able to go to ask. So yes.
Right.
So that's a big deal.
So that was it has to be potty trained to go to ask.
Yeah. So that was always that was our understanding with, you know, with our third child now in, you know, a different time, was you have to be potty trained, you got to be able to go to ask. So we reached out to ask, we got the potty training through ABA. The ABA home, you know, service is really what helped support us and bridge that gap. So we, you know,
Do they work on that in preschool, in the preschool disabled class, or no?
So they were taking the lead from our home ABA.
Okay.
So we would kind of provide the social stories and the stuff like that we were developing with our home ABA, and they were following it in the classroom as well. So really it started at home. We would put them on a diaper for the bus because we'll get to that.
Okay.
But the bus drivers, you know, weren't supporting that.
So transportation, I hear.
We'll get to that.
Through the cracks, I'm here, and that's bad for me. Okay.
Yes. So, right. So we were kind of not even broaching that.
Okay.
But then in the classroom, they would then immediately take his diaper off, and we'll kind of work on the same exact strategy we're using at home.
That's
And
awesome. Consistency across the board
so
is
it's
really
great.
key.
So anyway, so we have that going. So we got, you know, potty trained certainly enough for ask. And when we reached out to them to ask about the ABA, whether or not we could bridge that gap that way, the response we got was, it was polite enough, but it was, no, we don't allow outside people. And oh, by the way, your child can't come to ABA or come to ask anyway, because our special education preschoolers aren't able to go to ask anymore.
Okay.
In East Brunswick.
Okay. I need to stop, and we need to unpack that for a second.
Sure.
There's so many layers to that sort of made me throw up in my mouth just a little bit. Okay. So for full disclosure, the ASK program is not run by East Brunswick Public Schools, right?
Community programs.
It's community programs. So community programs is not including preschool disabled students in their aftercare program. Am I hearing that?
Yes, that's correct. And the reasons they give is that the district changed the hours of the preschool program.
For budget reasons, too.
I don't know what the reasons are.
So
Possibly,
the
I don't know.
district changed the time
The dismissal time.
of the preschool program or of the other school day?
Of the preschool disabled program gets out at 2:20. That's when they dismiss.
And when did they used to get out?
The same time as everybody else.
3:15.
Yes. So that is a change.
Do we know why that time change was made?
My best guess is transportation.
Okay, so then let's talk about transportation then, since that may have been the catalyst for the change. What differences are you seeing in the transportation arena from back then to now?
Sure. So, I mean, when my oldest was in the preschool program, the transportation was a big kind of continuity piece that was bridging that gap. I mean, we may have gotten very lucky. We had a great driver, and even the aide, they would come to all the classroom parties. They were part of the classroom. Everybody knew them. They knew everybody. They would communicate, things that, a parent might tell them to the teachers. There was really that continuity there.
Right. So I need to... also, but just for our audience, you need to understand how important transportation is when it comes to students with disabilities, specifically preschool disabled, who may not be verbal yet, right? So you're relinquishing your child to a bus driver and an aide, and you're hoping to the Lord above, whatever God you pray to, that you're putting them in good hands. And that's why transportation is so essential for special needs students, or I should say the relationship between the transportation people and the parents is so important, because your kids can't tell you what's going on.
Right. So last year my son was going to our homeschool. So he did have a bus in his IEP, but at some point when he first was starting, I get a call from a bus driver who's all I hear is yelling. This is at the time that, we had, my child's grandmother, my mother at the house waiting for him. And all I hear is yelling. And I hear a bus driver yelling at my son, presumably asking where he lives, what his address is, and what his last name is.
Oh, my goodness.
This is a 3-year-old nonverbal autistic child. So I just, I was at work.
Parent, my heart
it was terrible. I was around other people at work, and they saw my face and they knew something was wrong. And I just said, I have to go. And I just said, where are you? Stop the bus. I'm coming to you. I am trying to give her my address. She's not listening. So eventually I went and met the bus and got him off. And that was the last day he took the bus last year. He was in our home school, and we just transported him from then on.
Now, you were fortunate in that you were able to do that. I am a single parent, and I teach an hour away.
It was not easy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's a hardship. And special education, students in special education it's supposed to have transportation, and it's supposed to be adequate.
Yes, and it is, again, it's a big kind of skill that children need to learn, and it can be a developmental milestone, the ability to take a bus, get on a bus. Mm-hmm. So last year we were adapting to other things. We were working on the ABA, the potty training. So we tabled that.
Okay.
This year, he's not going to his homeschool because just the configurations of the classes changed. So he's now going to a different school. So we did put transportation in, and this year we need it. It's just a different scenario. So coming day one this year, we're waiting for the bus. We do our social stories. We prepare him because now my son's used to taking our minivan, and he wanted to go in the van. So we kind of prepared him and did picture books, the whole thing. So we're outside waiting for the bus. An hour goes by, an hour and a half goes by. I know traffic, is what it is, but. So we're calling transportation. They're just telling us it's coming. Finally, a bus comes about an hour and a half late. Wow. And I go to the driver and I confirm, you're going to 𝐒𝐡𝐨, right? You're going to 𝐒𝐡𝐨. She says, yes. He goes on the bus, take a deep breath, kind of put everything together, start heading out to our day. And then we get a call an hour and a half, 2 hours later, that asking why we sent our child to the wrong school.
Oh, blaming you.
Yes.
Asking why you.
Well, they assumed we dropped him off.
Oh, okay.
Because
Wait a minute.
They didn't even know.
The person that called me wasn't aware of the whole scenario.
I mean, who received the child?
I don't know that. And if he had name tags on his stuff,
Kids get off the bus. There should be aides that.
they must have
They
just.
weren't expecting.
He was on the preschool bus, so they must have just brought him in to the preschool class that was at that school. So, I mean, the case manager was very nice. You know, it was the child study team that kind of, interceded and knew, the people that he was with at that point knew him and knew, of him. So they called me and we kind of got that corrected. Thank God. It could have been worse. He still, at that point, wasn't able to really say his full name, all of that. So, thankfully, people intervened, but it could have been bad.
So bad. It could have been.
So then we call, transportation promises us, they took care of it. And, so then the next day, again, waiting outside.
Can I ask you a question of clarification? This bus company, contracted or district?
No, definitely contracted. So, yes. So then the next day we're waiting outside. After an hour goes by, I start calling. I was trying to be very patient. I understand first couple days in
You a
school.
lot of credit, man.
But I
not have been that way.
I'm calling and they're just, they tell me it's coming. And then, finally someone fesses up and says, okay, so it looks like they're not coming. It looks like someone made a mistake.
Did they give you a reason?
No, everyone's blaming someone else, right? Because it's a contracted company. Well, it's a contracted company, so transportation wants no part of it.
Well, you're suffering from the other due digit syndrome.
Yeah, so they tell me just today, drive him to school. We'll take care of it. No, because we worked on this, and if I drive him in my car, this is a child that is concrete and wants to get in the van. As I'm waiting outside, I'm having to physically keep him away from our vehicle because he wants to go to school and he wants me to drive him. And I could have at that point, but I'm setting up for.
And you're undoing so much work that you had done and so much success that you had.
So I said, I did have to say, I'm not driving him. Someone has to come get him. Eventually, someone came and took him that day. And then we got into a routine and he got on the right bus. But, starting, I think, day 3, we probably got on the right track. So that was that. Okay. But, there's more to the story.
Okay. So that's the transportation. Are there any other aspects of the program that you see are like major red flag differences? I mean, those are major red flag differences that you mentioned already. But are there others?
Well, I mean, I guess this becomes a bigger district issue because at that point, we, started where once we knew that ask was off the table, coming back to that, which we are not happy about, but I can't change the hours of the program. And there is this 45-minute hour gap maybe between when the preschoolers get out and ask starts, and they don't have anyone to bridge that gap. So ask is off the table until kindergarten for any special ed student in district.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but ask is significantly less expensive than daycare centers, is it not?
It is.
So that in itself puts a strain on parents in the district of special needs students who now have to seek out a more expensive alternative to what other students in the district are eligible for.
And honestly, if any families, I don't want to say if any families, but the families that arguably could need that support the most are those who have special needs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
yes.
So there's that. So right. So once we do that, we start shopping at daycare centers, asking around, okay, who is willing to have an ABA therapist continue to work with our child? And we're corporate.
Why is that? So tell me, right. So explain why that might be an issue.
Right. So corporate daycare is really, they all kind of say, well, our insurance doesn't allow outside people to work with children. It would have to be our person. They don't have ABA people on staff. Meanwhile, we have an ABA therapist that's been working with our child that was willing to go somewhere. We found one. A really good one.
Can I stop
And
you?
close.
Well,
Yes.
Can I ask you really quickly though, if your son was in Ask, would the ABA therapist be able to go to the school?
No.
So that wouldn't, okay.
They made that clear.
They made that clear.
Right.
Would they have somebody that would be able to provide ABA therapy after school?
Not necessarily ABA therapy, but our hope was to work with the site director that at least presenting the language and some of the things that we were working on, and there would be some continuity there.
Okay.
Just based on our positive experiences with Ask in the past, we kind of weren't ecstatic that our ABA therapist wouldn't be able to follow him in the district ask, but we were hopeful that we were wanting to try.
Right.
And
Okay.
but yeah, with daycares, we've had some experiences with daycares in town. So with special needs children, some are better than others, but even the ones that have been really good couldn't have our ABA. So now having daycare that doesn't have the ABA was not ideal.
Right.
So we found a daycare that we love. That's a home-based daycare in town that was willing to and really wanted to have our child and bring ABA in. So it was a best case scenario. Expensive, but best case scenario.
Totally out of pocket.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I reach out to
Not district funded at all.
not at all. We're providing the ABA. We're providing the daycare. Right. So yeah, we're just out of luck with that stuff.
Just looking for.
Right. We're just looking at that point. We just needed something.
So now your son is in 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻, correct?
Right.
And that is not your homeschool.
Correct.
And the daycare center is where? Like
the daycare center so it's over by Churchill. So it's
okay. So it's cross-ish town.
It's about the same distance from 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻 as my house.
Oh, that's important to know.
Yes.
So it's the same distance. They would be driving the same distance, just in a different direction.
Right. And the van that takes my child home goes all over town because special education preschool pulls from all over town.
Right.
So the van does go all over town. So I reached out to transportation. They have an alternate transportation form. And that's, what you use if your child is being dropped off at a daycare or something else, as opposed to your house. And it has to be, there are certain caveats. It has to be every day. So you can't say, Mondays I want to hear it. And that makes sense because they have routes.
Absolutely.
So, and it takes, once you submit the form, you expect it would take, I was ballparking a few weeks to be able to kind of get that route. Again, I'm pretty patient, so I was expecting.
Unreasonable at all.
No, I would think it takes a little bit, especially if it's contracted, but assuming he was going to be on the same van, it was just.
So let me get a little bit more perspective on the van. So the van has all of this, a lot of say 5 or 6 students on it, and they go to various places.
Right.
They're not all going to the same homeschool neighborhood.
Right. Yeah.
That needs to be made clear. So so kids on his van are not all going to your neighborhood.
No, they're going all over.
There is a chance that the van is going in that direction.
Yes.
Okay.
So I along with the alternate transportation form, I thought it was important just to give some context, just, to if I needed to provide any kind of support for my request. So I, put it all down there and sent it in and was immediately denied.
When you say immediately, what do you mean?
Well, first I got no response for the first day, and then I found out that the director of transportation was out that day. I was denied. I got the denial letter, I want to say 8:30 in the morning the next day.
Oh. So it was only delayed because somebody wasn't at work.
Nobody was looking at it. Right. So it was just.
But as soon as they saw it, it was
immediately denied, as citing policy 8600.
I'd like to 86 policy 8600.
Yes.
All right. So policy 8600. Go on. So
sure.
So what is policy 8600 exactly? Break it down for us.
Right. So it just says that a child can only receive transportation to or from their homeschool catchment area or the catchment area of the school where they attend.
Okay.
So meaning that my child can be brought to my house because it's in my homeschool catchment area.
Right.
But would not be able to receive alternate transportation to a different location in East Brunswick that's not in my home catchment area.
So I have
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Wait, I have a question.
No, you're not looking out for the best interest of the child.
But I also have a question for you because, what if it was I'm thinking 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻, what if it was over by down the road, Old Bridge Turnpike area, but it's not in your catchment area. It's actually but it's closer to 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻 than would be your home.
Only if it's they would only allow it if it's in the official catchment area for 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻.
So you can do it in 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻's
for the school where they attend or the homeschool.
All right. Okay. So okay.
Well, I say or, it's really and. So it could be either one.
Okay.
So.
But you weren't able to find a daycare center that was in either catchment area, correct?
Right.
That would allow
Not a lot of the daycares even provide after school care because financially it doesn't really make sense for them because it takes up a slot. So,
And very
so
often
there's not
it's also older kids that they're not, that they.
so there's not many options, especially for a special needs child. So but it certainly was within the
Ironically, that's one of the businesses I wanted to start, by the way. I did.
you'd be
I had a
great.
business plan for it. Sorry.
All right, let me know. So the fact that it was the same distance, so if he's just being dropped off and it's the same distance from Chittick as my house, it didn't really make sense to me,
And would this cost the district literally a penny more?
So my proposal, and I reached out to the Board of Education because once I found out that there was a policy holding it back, I know that, how East Brunswick is, people are not going to violate a policy. So I reached out to the Board of Education and I said, okay, so this policy, as I'm looking at it, easily could be amended just to include, hey, if you have a child with special needs and the Director of Special Services was willing to approve and sign off on this required service that we're providing the service at our own expense. And quite honestly, it's keeping him in district long term.
Explain what you mean by that.
Sure. So if we hadn't been providing these services, I don't know what he would be able to do. There are special education schools, which we know that our district does not like to send our children to.
So for reference, sending a child out of district to an out of district school can easily cost a district upwards of $100,000 per school year.
Right.
So in essence, not costing the district any additional money by asking them to bus your child to a daycare center that may be a little bit out of the catchment area would actually, or could potentially, save the district upwards of $1 million, would you say?
Well, and that's the most extreme. But
no, it's actually not that extreme because he's 3 years old, right?
Right. No, I'm not saying that's extreme. I'm saying he, at the very least, would need a 1-to-1 aid. Right, which again is crossing.
But if you send him out of district, that's easily over the course of his educational career, over $1 million just for him.
Right, and that's if you're looking financially, absolutely.
Yes. Well,
also not providing him any of the inclusion opportunities.
Forget any of the opportunities.
I know how
forget any of the academics. Yes. Forget any of that. I'm looking at it just from a budgetary standpoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to save them money.
This district, let's be honest, is penny wise and dollar foolish, number one, which most districts are.
Right.
And consistently reactive and not proactive.
Right.
So you are literally handing them the blueprints for being proactive at no expense to them whatsoever.
Right.
But actually having the foresight to save them money ahead of time while also giving your child what he needs.
Yes.
And all it's not amend the policy.
Right. And it does
make up for a wrong they did by
Well, right. So let's talk about that for a second, because this, aside from community programs not allowing, because we don't know what that is, whole other issue, we'll touch on that. But this is because the time was changed, correct? So a new policy was put in place that affected another policy.
Right. So, and listen, I've wrestled with this, and I have two possibilities. When they changed the preschool time to an earlier dismissal, that whether it was an unintended consequence and they didn't think about aftercare, or they saw it as kind of a loss that would be acceptable to them.
As many students,
oh well, those families will figure out whatever. So either it was an unintended consequence or it was an intentional act. And it was saying, all right, this kid's community programs might have to have a better ratio if they have kids with different needs. Like, I don't know what the rationale was. Whatever it was, isn't good enough.
It's Neither one is good, actually.
Right.
They're both an epic fail.
No. And I was told, community programs email said, well, at some point we'll discuss with the director, and maybe in the future we'll, be able to figure out a way to make it work, and said they would include me in that conversation. I haven't received anything, so I pretty much, I believe people were just saying they saw that there was an issue, but nobody.
They're kicking the can.
Yeah. So
What is, I don't mean to call any other people out, but have there been any other organizations, any parent support groups in town through the district who really their main job is to support parents and families with special needs? Have they been a help at all?
only after I spoke with, so we're fast forwarding a little bit, I spoke at one of the recent board meetings.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. So, okay, so you got a hard no, right? You got a hard no on the transportation.
I got a hard no. Reached out, like I said, and I was careful when I sent my email to the board. It was very thought out, and I wanted to make sure that what I was proposing wouldn't open the floodgates for the district, right?
You didn't want to
Because
set
I know how it is.
precedent.
You change a policy, and now all of a sudden they'll say, well, now anybody who's anybody could ask for transportation, and we won't be able to handle it. Like, I was being very careful in what I was proposing, that it would have to receive special permission or consent from the director of special services, who would not be just approving it willy-nilly.
Right.
So I'm not opening the floodgates. I'm not costing the district anything by this proposal, and I heard nothing, and I was so surprised, right? Because I reached out with, here's what needs to happen in the most respectful, deferential way. I said, okay, Board of Education, here's an issue that I wouldn't expect that any of you would have been able to foresee. I know it's unique, right? So, but here's an issue. Here's a child in the district. Now, this is something that I'm sure other families have dealt with, where they've struggled with the fact that their kids can't go to aftercare, and maybe they've had to quit their jobs. Maybe they've had to, have a grandparent come over. I don't know, but not everybody has that. So I'm pointing it out to the Board of Education. Here's an issue, and here's a policy. Just add a letter I. There's so many little caveats under that policy. If you add an I, just if a child has an IEP, has a special need, Director of Special Services confirms that this need is legitimate, and there is a place in East Brunswick where alternate transportation could drop him off that would meet that need, just do it. It's really not asking for a lot.
And what's frustrating, the reason why you would think somebody would want to be on the Board of Education is to have this impact. It's to make these changes, be part of these changes, and make a difference.
I was so surprised.
I don't understand. What I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is that every time you bring something up to the Board of Education, they always say, well, we're really only about policy, right? And we don't, we're not the employers of all of the people in the district, and we're only the employer of the superintendent, and blah, 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 policy, policy, policy. And here you're asking them to be part of a conversation that involves policy directly, and you're getting your, literally the door shut in your face. So I am sure that there was no policy in existence about online learning the day before the world shut down on March 13th, 2020. Correct? Correct. I was at Irwin that day when that phone rang. I was picking my child up. My friend called and said, oh my goodness, there's a case at Irwin. Are you there? And I was like, yeah. And you're looking around. The board got on the phone or a Zoom or something immediately and did whatever they needed to do and had a consensus and a quorum, whatever they want to call it, Robert's rules, whatever you follow. Something was done. Movement was made, and we carried on business as usual. They did what they needed to do. Why not now? That's what I don't understand.
Because it's one child, and
but
it's not just one child, but
it's one loud family, and good for you.
Are we loud?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
We
listen,
never have been before.
You're talking about somebody who's, I'm the precocious one, so I think you should be loud because your child can't speak for himself.
And we have been, for whatever it's worth. If anybody that's had my kids in district, we have been the most cooperative.
When I say loud, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean that you're the one, right? You're the one who knows what's going on.
I see how this impacts.
For you, though, because maybe there are other parents who are going to say, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Maybe there are parents who have kids going into the preschool, disabled program next year, expecting to also be part of Ask.
Yeah.
And are going to now have to think of alternatives as well. So when I say loud, I mean making good trouble.
Thanks.
I don't mean making bad trouble. Honestly, that's what I mean. I think that's a fabulous thing. It's what I've been doing in special ed my whole life.
Yeah.
You need to, because unfortunately, the doors get shut a lot, right?
Right.
And
I've learned a lot. Right?
I know.
So, right. So, after hearing nothing, I sent, I believe it was, I sent 2 emails to the entire board, right, asking for this. And they were, again, deferential, polite, respectful. Eventually, I did hear back from the business administrator, not from any of the board members.
So you wrote an email directly to the board?
Yes.
And you,
to the Board of Education email address. And I was told that gets disseminated to all of them.
Yeah.
Right. And
even the superintendent.
correct me if I'm wrong, though, but wasn't that like a big campaign thing that they were going
transparency
to
is always
start at least acknowledging that emails were received? Like, I remember that because that was a big thing for me, that I sent 1 million emails over the course of 3 years. I don't even know if they're being read. So all of these people who swore that they were going to make sure that transparency was more upfront and that at least we were going to be acknowledged for sending an email, that is not happening either.
One thing I learned about being part of the Board of Education, like helping people with their campaigns, the term transparency is way overused.
Oh my God, it's fake. It's a smokescreen.
It's ridiculous.
It's gaslighting at its best.
Yeah.
It's gaslighting, yeah. So, okay, you heard nothing. You heard nothing, not even we received your letter and we are discussing it in closed session.
Well, eventually after my second email, and I was sure to leave space for board meetings in between, figuring, all right, maybe they need to discuss it at a closed session or whatever. So I left, time in between for the board meeting, sent another follow-up. I haven't heard anything, just, wanted to kind of know if this is being discussed or considered, because now we're in a place where we didn't have a daycare. Like, just from a personal standpoint, we were scrambling, kind of waiting, like, maybe this will help.
Right, and what if you had lost the spot in that? Like, what if
I had to keep reaching out and asking if it was still...
Like, what if you all of a sudden called the woman and said, okay, and she was like, oh, sorry.
And did reach out, and I was like, I just want to make sure the offer is still out there.
Yeah.
And just lovely. And she said, yes, the offer's here. I know you're working on it. So eventually I did get an email back after my second email to the board from the business administrator, and just basically with
a whole lot of empathy, I'm sure.
None. Shooting me down completely. First it restates, okay, this is the email we received. It said this.
And who was that? Is that
Juliana.
Juliana.
Right. Okay. So, and all it says is, we received this. Here's a restatement of what you're asking for. And then just a straight up, the category was denial. And then it was just said, okay, here's, because of policy 8600, your request is denied. Any further attempt to discuss policies 8600 will not receive a response. Period. And what? Like, I'm asking for my child.
My heart would have been in my stomach.
I wanted to
First of all,
I wanted to cry.
Right, like just the callousness. This is your child. Like, this is your child that they just literally closed the door on in such a black and white way, and such a cold and callous, very businesslike way.
It was when I spoke to the board, I said, this is what I would expect if I asked like United Airlines for a refund. Right. Not if I asked my child's board of education to look at, like, come on, I'm asking for like drop a 4-year-old off at a daycare. Like, I'm not asking for like worlds to be moved.
That's not costing anything.
It doesn't cost the district anything.
That's the big part of this.
What I was left with, just knowing what I've heard about the board and the vote of no confidence and whatever, like all that stuff that I've kind of just always given people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And then you get a response like that and you're like, was this discussed? Is this him responding? Is it the board? Like there was nothing in there that said the board discussed this. Right. And it was just your request is denied because there's a policy in place and I'm happy with it. And it's just, you will not receive a response moving forward.
Just from experiences with certain things with the town council and even the BOE, I don't think it is discussed. I think they just go on with the lawyer.
I actually have
what the lawyer says.
I think that this,
and they trust the lawyer.
I noticed that as well. Policy, right? The lawyer, and it's not legalities, by the way. It's policy. It's not legalities. They're not always. It's not always legal things that they are creating policy around. Some of them are actually skirting the law. Yeah.
Well,
they hide behind policy.
But there is a law. I mean, this is the least restrictive placement.
Well,
we do have special education law that plays in.
That's
we are working on it.
So there is a way that this can be, and you are giving them the opportunity to not have to go.
I don't want to go like litigious, like
Right.
like
I know.
we could call SPAN or like one.
No, I wasn't even saying that. I wasn't even actually saying legally that way. I was saying like you could have it written into his IEP, like you're giving like. There are ways that they're going to have to, in order for it to be the least, this is an IDEA issue. Like this is an free and appropriate public education issue.
Yeah, I mean, So I mean,
ADA is a necessity for him right now.
Right. In the denial, it just said this is parental responsibility. Like after the school kids are dismissed from school, it's on you. Like, and to an extent, I get that. But if you're not offering this, and we're saying that this is what's necessary for him to be able to stay in district and be able to use the potty at school, like we're not. This is not frivolous stuff. This is like real basics, real stuff.
I actually don't even, for me, I think that it's more, it's an equitable thing. I understand that, like, you know, you're saying that, you know, policy says that it's after school and that the parents should take care of it. But for me, it's you offer something to one set of students that you do not offer to another set of students. It's as black and white as that, as far as I'm concerned. It is.
Yeah.
There is a group of students who are excluded from a completely available opportunity to other students. So, okay, fine. Like that in itself is a very large problem.
Yeah.
Could be a litigious problem, by the way. Could be for whoever it may be, right?
Right.
So you're not even going there. What you're saying is I'm actually I'm giving you a pass on that one. Right? Like I'm letting you off the hook for that, but help me out with my son.
Right. We and really thought this. Sorry.
This is the definition of equity. This is why you had equity. It's because it's. I mean, this is what it's for.
Right.
This specific.
That's what I'm saying.
Reason.
I mean, how
like this is an equitable issue. Like this is clearly.
But this is the top tier. This is
right.
This is.
Listen, when it's your own kid, you see things like we see it from our perspective, right? So we've had to take a step back and ask people. Does this sound reasonable to you? Like, are we being unreasonable? Like, we really tried to do a lot of self-reflection and just say, okay, are we asking for something that is, too much? Like, there are people on the board that I know as individuals, how is this a non-starter? How was this discussed?
Well, that's why I think you're right when you say it wasn't discussed. I think it was a unilateral decision.
About that.
No, this is from other experience.
But I spoke to the board at a board meeting, and then they seemed to be listening, and I heard nothing back after that. Like, and I know board members aren't allowed to reach out individually, but I didn't hear anything from anybody other than I haven't even heard from. I'm drinking on it. Nobody. Yeah, I didn't hear back from anybody other than community members reaching out to me in support. So I know someone had reached out to CPAG. They reached out and said they'll discuss it at the next round table at some point. Like,
yeah, but like then time passes, right?
Like,
and you're
here we are.
It's December now. It's almost halfway through the school year.
A year is a big deal to a 4-year.
It is an enormous deal to every school-aged child, by the way. But yes, especially those young children.
Yeah.
Maybe our new superintendent will.
I hope
do what she was that we're all hoping for.
I don't. What do you want? So. What do you want? Like, tell us what do you want to see come to fruition here? What would you...
I mean, I think that's evolved, right? So if you asked me that before, when I first started sending emails to the board, it was, and it still is, first and foremost, I want my child to be able to get either ask or transportation to an ABA place, because right now we are piecing it together. He's receiving less ABA. There's some regression. So you're
already seeing regression.
I don't want to get too far into it, but yes,
you don't have to. But that's a very big piece.
With basic things.
Yeah.
And again, his teacher's awesome. But we're seeing it, certainly. And at home and, on the way to school and stuff like that. So we are seeing that. So yes, I want that. But now seeing how, I've been on both sides, and seeing how a parent is treated with a very reasonable request, I think my answer to that has evolved into, it has to be different. Like a parent who's coming, just a parent who's coming with a legitimate concern, and it does have to matter that this is a parent that has been 100%, supportive of the district and of.
And who's been here for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up here. So at the end of the day, for a parent, if that's how parents are treated, I think that has become just as important to me. That, I mean, parents who come with a reasonable request to the board cannot be treated the way that we have.
What's really frightening for me is that you are somebody who knows the ins and outs of this stuff. I mean, if I had to go through this, I wouldn't even know where to.
Well, that's the scariest part about it, though. And I think that's what they bank on, the fact that some of them are not going to know the questions to ask and are not going to be able to,
aren't getting the service.
Right.
It has to be.
So then what you want?
That's
so what would be your call to action then about that? Like, as a parent of special needs children, how should they be treating people? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean,
don't we elect these people?
We do.
Right,
we just did. I don't know. I don't know that getting up and speaking in your 3. I mean, no. If you see I worked really hard on filling those 3 minutes.
You said you were going to start out with you have more than 3 minutes here.
So, I mean, the fact, and then just, I poured my heart out. And I know. All right, thank you. Sit down.
Actually.
Well, I think what has to happen is that's our responsibility. If Kevin wants to come along, is just to get more of these stories out there. Yep. Because what I found, unfortunately, the only, and the reason why with Eyes on EB, I write the way I do, the only way you make changes if you embarrass people. Unfortunately, no, that's how you react. It's not just being reasonable.
Well, you have to publicly force their hand. I think that's what it is. So it's not necessarily embarrassing.
Well,
I think it's change.
No, my motivation for speaking at the board was, like I said, I just wanted to make sure the board members were hearing what was happening, right? Because I didn't trust that they had heard. Point. But now, having not heard from any of them, I now have to believe they did, and they're complicit. And that breaks my heart more than anything else, because these are people that I know. And community members that I respect. Yeah. And I mean, my only take is they don't care. And I don't want to believe that.
I hate to believe that, right? You hate to believe that.
But how else can I know the board is restricted by whatever? But how can you not make sure that I've at least heard from somebody?
You do never know what's going on in the back end. Not that I'm defending anybody, you know what I mean? But not that I'm not making excuses.
I know, but you know what though?
I have to get a little benefit of it. I'm just hoping, but they have to do a better job.
I don't know. I think I'll hold out about 2 more weeks to see that right now. I'd like to think that maybe the change halted certain things, right? Maybe the personnel shift may have halted or slowed down processes or maybe conversations a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's not what the response said.
That's what I'm
The response said you will not receive any further. It was pretty clear.
Yeah.
Right. Basically, he was saying this is not going to be a conversation on our part again.
Right. You will not receive.
So that's why I'm going to say no.
No, all right.
I'm going to say no.
That's what I said to the board. Was this unilateral, or is this a group decision? All they had to do was get back to me and say, this is the board's decision. Okay, at least now I know what I'm dealing with.
So you definitely have a unique perspective. You've been in the district for many years. You grew up here, but I'm talking about as a parent, you've been in the district, and you've also been in the special ed arena as a parent for many years. Are there other things that you feel leave a little bit to be desired in that area that could be worked on? Honestly, we have a new superintendent right now.
How much time do we have?
Well,
and again, there's a lot of really good things happening.
Right, I know. I don't want to be a one-sided East Brunswick's awful. It's wonderful in so many ways.
I will say. So having a duly exceptional child at the high school level,
Duly exceptional. Meaning, I love that. Yeah. Tell people what that means, because that's a term that's not used very often.
Oh, sorry. I'm a psychologist.
But it's right.
No, so
it's
So it's a student that, for example, has he's in honors and AP classes, but also has an IEP, and he's on the spectrum. So there are unique needs there. I
can speak as a parent as well. That they fall short in that area.
They do. I remember,
in a lot of ways.
I know the laws. I know special ed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he started, he was going into 6th grade, and I got the call that, listen, your child, well, first he wasn't put on the math prime list because he was on the special education list. So then when I reached out and said, that's weird, because he got like a level 5 on the NJSLA and all the other stuff. I think it was Park at that point. So anyway, so when I reached out, and the math supervisor immediately got back and said, you're absolutely right. He meets all the criteria. So then I got the call that we needed to change his IEP because they don't provide any kind of support or assistance at those levels. So in my mind, that's not really, that's how it's supposed to be. That's not really legal, but
I actually I brought that up, not in your case,
Right.
but on behalf of a couple of other students that I've worked with, that they need a CCT in this district, and they didn't even know what a CCT was.
Right.
They didn't even know what, I had to tell them what, I had to tell an assistant superintendent what a CCT was.
I mean, we went along with it with, something in the parental concerns and said, well, yeah, we reserve the right to like come back and revisit this. It was okay. It was fine. Like, we've had some really great honors level teachers that have really kind of worked with his IEP and stuff like that. And we've had some that really shook their heads and thought he didn't belong there. And that's, that's been the minority. Most have been great.
Good.
However, what we're seeing with the high school, like the fact that they don't have substitutes or anything anymore, when an honor
Explain to me what, because my kids aren't in the high school yet. What exactly?
I'm not the best one to say exactly. I know that when a teacher's out, they go to like a central area and they scan in. There's like a QR code, and then
Is there an adult in the room?
I'm sure they're being monitored.
It's like a study hall.
Yeah. So it's like self-guided learning. So on individual basis, like 1 or 2 days, like it hasn't really been it's not ideal, but it hasn't been too big an issue. I mean, for a kid on the spectrum, that's kind of like fantasy land. You don't have to look like you're attending. You can multitask. You can, all the stuff that, he loves to do. But he had a teacher that was out for, rightfully so. I mean, this is a great teacher that was out for a family leave, but
Which is extended. It's not just
it was extended, and it's an honors class. So they were given kind of just learn on your own. Here's videos, here's stuff. There's no sub. So he had a test so during that time they had like new topics and then a test. He happened to be absent the day of the test. So he reached out. How do I make up the test? Nobody responded back. He asked the proctor in the study hall, who didn't know where to point him. So he kind of just, we kind of kept on him, but he didn't hear back and figured, okay, maybe it's
Weren't we talking about this, about like the ADA, like that they're set up almost like for failure because you're expecting them to facilitate their own learning and they don't have the capability, no matter how.
And he has the capability, but there's certain accommodations that like need to be in place.
Right. No, but I'm talking about like those executive functioning, like they don't, that executive functioning piece of it, he's left to his own devices for, and academically he can handle it, but the executive functioning piece is where he may fall short.
Right. The logic is just very simplistic, like honors level, they should be able to handle it, which I'm sure 95% probably can. But so anyway, no one told him where to make up this test. And then the marking period comes to an end, and the teacher who was still on leave reached out and said, okay, so you never took this test, so you're going to have a 0 temporarily until we figure this out. And then he got really upset, and we got, whatever. So then it was just, East Brunswick's Title I, so we don't have substitutes. So
Wait, what? What does that have to do with Title I?
That's the response we got. So we don't have substitutes. So it was his responsibility to know that he was supposed to go to the floating after-school test administrator person and find out who was there on that particular day and take the test. Never minding the fact that he wouldn't, I'm sure, receive his extra time or his ability to, re-clarify, that kind of stuff. So that certainly wasn't going to happen, but we didn't know that. He didn't know that. So anyway, so we eventually had to work it out with the case manager and the whole thing, but that should not have been a thing, like that he was left to his own devices the entire time. So, so that kind of policy, it kind of highlights the fact that we're not really looking out necessarily for those dually exceptional kids, because even if they're really bright, there's still reasons and there's still needs. And, if there's a science lab, he can do it all, but might need help with the conversation, how to work in a group.
I think that's really irresponsible. In any class, honors or otherwise, that any kind of test should ever be given when the teacher is actually not there. Like, I have been told since I started teaching, literally, you never give a test if you are absent. You are never to give a test if you are not present in front of the students to answer the questions directly, because you are the one that administered the learning to them. So if you are physically not in that classroom to answer those questions in the way that you taught it, the test should not be administered to those students. So the fact that they would give a test after a month of a teacher not even giving live instruction, I'm not shocked by that at all, but I can't, I mean, I guess I am shocked by that, actually.
I mean,
it blows my mind.
I mean, we could be here for a long time discussing that. And I think it's something that, I mean, you asked, it's something that should probably be looked at.
So we've talked about Henry, we've talked about Jacob, and we haven't talked about one of my favorites, Juliet, and what she does and how she loves this district, or how are we doing with that?
So, she's great, and I won't, get into, everything with her, but she does, this morning she auditioned she does Teen Arts, which is an amazing program. East Brunswick does not advertise it very much. So
I've never heard of it.
It's run through Middlesex County College. Okay. Every Middlesex County school participates. And, so we were there. There's 500 plus kids from the county just in her audition time slot. And she does filmmaking. So
500 just in her time slot.
In her time slot.
So
but not all for filmmaking. So there were
other time slots that other kids.
Yeah, so it's a lot, and it's a great cross section of the county, right? Because we have, there was, I know some districts had buses full of kids that they were sending, so it was really cool. It's just seeing them all come together, and she did it last year, and it was an amazing experience. Just the group of kids she was around, like they still have their group texts and everything else, and so all the blossoming filmmakers out there, so cool. It's cool. She's found her crew.
Okay, I love that.
They love going to Chick-fil-A.
Does East Brunswick Public Schools support the program?
So you're right. So, yeah. So
they opened a can.
So last year, she noticed that there was, other districts had a lot. East Brunswick had 3 kids going. So
it's such an artistic district.
It's during the
so
school day, right? So right. And there's visual arts, there's musical theater, there's, the list, the creative writing components, there's all these different classes, and they focus, hers is just filmmaking. And they have professional equipment, they have filmmakers that come in, guest filmmakers, and they learn from professionals. Every course has their professionals. So the creative writing has published authors, the musical theater has actual Broadway performers.
And do they get credits for this? Does this lead to?
Yeah. So there's a middle school and then a high school component.
Okay.
So she's in the middle school. So she goes on Wednesdays for the afternoons.
Okay.
So she's responsible to make up what she misses.
Okay.
But so she leaves school. Mm-hmm. So East Brunswick sends very few compared to the others. And then, do
you think that's purposeful?
So when, we go through the logistics of the program, there's a tuition component, that, we were told you can ignore the tuition component because the district picks that up unless you live in East Brunswick.
Oh, Lord.
So every other district in Middlesex County except East Brunswick pays for their students to go.
Yes. So I went up and asked. I wanted to make sure I heard correctly. So I did ask, and she, it was confirmed that East Brunswick is the only district that does not pay for the students to go or transport the students. So last year we had to pay a different district to come pick up our 3 kids in Churchill to bring them to the program.
And what's the reasoning?
So the reasoning, well, East Brunswick used to not send our students at all because they were told that it's a blue ribbon district and it wasn't necessary for East Brunswick students because the district offers so much, is what they were told. That changed. Apparently, the supervisor of our arts program is an alumnus of the program. And kind of,
not what you know, it's who you know.
To her credit, reached out and said, why are our kids not coming to this program?
But if she didn't know about the program, she wouldn't have been an advocate necessarily.
So it sounds like she at least got the ability for our students to go.
Fabulous.
But the district refuses to pay for it. So I don't know the politics or the reasons. They did know Dr. Valesky's name as soon as I asked. I informed them that he is no longer our superintendent. So maybe that can change. I don't know, but it certainly should, because this program, if it prevents any of our kids from going, it should change, because it is a fabulous program.
Never heard of it.
Sounds to me like that.
𝐒𝐮𝐷NJ.com.
𝐒𝐮𝐷NJ.com. I am going to look it up for my children.
I do not work for them or anything.
No, I know.
I'm just a
Good
parent.
blog post how we don't all
But I also think that this sounds like something that, like, if the district isn't willing to cover it themselves, but they're okay with students going, why wouldn't, like, an East Brunswick Education Foundation or even pilot money, like, right? Wouldn't that be some, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about pilot money, but like there's extra money. I mean, I don't know, like a fundraiser of some sort, like a scholarship, some other way, because what about students who are exceptionally talented but can't even scratch two pennies together and wouldn't even be able to even audition because it's out of their realm completely?
Right.
Like,
we did have to pay to audition too.
you have to pay to audition also.
A little bit. It wasn't a lot, but you do
But
pay
it's still,
something.
that could turn
Forgive me. I've been adding up all the extras that you have to pay for in my head.
off.
Yeah, kids are expensive. I don't know, but it's. I mean, we haven't hesitated, but thank God we have the ability. But it's not. I didn't know we were the only ones that hit a little different when I heard that. Because it's just, and it hit different in that it kind of makes sense why we only have a few when we're such an artistic, creative community.
I know.
We have so many great kids, and even like we were just rattling off like, oh, I bet this kid would love it. This kid would, but the only way our kids in East Brunswick know about it is they put it in the like announcements, and then they had like a info session, kids only, like during a lunch period, and my daughter went and came home with it, but unless like the kids, sometimes I guess they don't even hear the announcements. I don't know.
They don't
but
hear them, because I do say to my children, like, how did you not know about it?
So that's how
they make an announcement.
And, and the fact that they're still going by the blue ribbon narrative is just hilarious.
Yeah, that was like the first thing that they were like, we were told you guys were blue ribbon. You don't need this.
1998.
But aren't a lot of them blue ribbon? South Brunswick's blue. I mean,
I'm sure.
There's quite a few.
But we're not even really a blue ribbon.
But it doesn't matter. There are other blue ribbon districts.
It's not a reason not to expose our kids.
No, I know that, but
like
make an excuse for something that doesn't exist. Real, technically, it's
right.
Right, yeah.
You know,
they're Super Bowl champions too.
Yeah. So anyway, my kids are doing great.
I'm glad. And what would you like to leave our listeners with? Like, what's your final message for everybody? What do you want to come from this experience that you're having with the district, so that other parents and families, and your family, quite frankly, can be, made whole again in this situation, because you need help right now.
Yeah. And I guess the silver lining has been, the community members I've heard from, since.
Yeah, but community members don't make the policy.
Right. No, I know that. So, right. So I guess, knowing that there's other people out there, like, because I was terrified to speak in front of the board and come here, like,
much courage.
It's a lot.
I applaud you I really do. My heart, I literally cried when you were up there, and I can't believe that you have to be even put in that position to have to stand up there. So I applaud you for standing up for your children and advocating when it's not easy to do.
No, and what I hate is having to put their stuff out there.
Well,
why do I have to expose that?
Yeah.
It's such a vulnerable. Yeah. It's such a vulnerable topic, and shame on anyone for not acknowledging that by acknowledging you speaking and not saying to you, we hear you, we saw you.
Right.
It didn't go unnoticed.
It wouldn't cost that. That can't be against the rules.
Empathy
for somebody to show some empathy.
Should not be an afterthought, and that's the bottom line. Like I always say, education is a team sport. I tell my college students all the time, like, if you're going into education and you don't have empathy, turn around and find another profession, because you cannot function in education. Well, I mean, you can, but you're going to be a hard ass, and you're not going to be well liked or even really fully effective, I don't think, without empathy.
I guess that answers the question. Is what I'm looking for and what I want is that we demand compassion and empathy. And it's not, yes, I want to demand transportation. I want to demand aftercare for the special education preschoolers. Like that's I guess
should
that
just be without
if I'm looking at Kohlberg's levels of hierarchy of needs, like that's the crux of like what I'm looking for. But now having gone through this, as whether or not you have a child in this program or you have a child that goes to 𝐒𝐮 or whatever, like I guess at the end of the day, what I want is that the demands we're putting out there. Like, yeah, there's policies and there's politics and there's all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to do better on because listen, I have a thick skin. I've been around. I have a family that supports me. I have friends that support me. I have this outlet with you guys. Like I have ways that I've been able to, and my family's been able to kind of cope with the response we've gotten. Mm-hmm. But we have to demand better because, here is someone being vulnerable. Here's somebody asking for my child's Board of Education for support. And if we're okay with the only response being from a business administrator saying, stop writing to us, we're not going to respond to you.
Where do we go?
How is that possibly the response?
And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but it doesn't cost them anything.
Right.
I understand money. There's the problem with the magic money tree is that there's no magic money tree.
Very careful for a very reason.
Right. There's no.
Right.
So I get the money thing. Sometimes you're just not money, right?
No, you can't get blood from a stone, right?
Right. But there's no money involved.
Right.
Do they think it's going to turn into money?
I know how. They're likely, the first thought is, well, if we do it here, this is going to open the floodgates. So I was very careful in my ask, and I outlined it in my email to the board that this is I'm not putting something broad out there that would cause unintended, issues.
Yeah.
So it just take a second to look into it and talk and have a conversation with somebody who's clearly level-headed about this. I'm not coming in hot and crazy. I'm coming in level-headed and cooperative and deferential and saying, you guys are the board. I'm just coming as a parent. I'm not coming as, with my accolades and my education and all that. That's part of me, but I'm coming as a parent.
That's not what's driving this.
Yeah. Right. I'm coming as a parent.
Figuratively and legally. No pun intended.
If that's how we're responding, I think above all else is the ask has to be when someone's putting themselves out there, how are we responding in that way? And how are we okay with that?
How are we here? Where's the compassion and empathy? Yeah. I think that's where we end.
Absolutely.
Really think that there's much more to say. Where's the compassion and empathy?
And how do we send our kids somewhere where it takes a lot, right? We're trusting it's our most precious card.
How do we send them to a place that's so non-compassionate?
Yeah, and it's not
such empathy.
It's not the teachers. Thank God they have the teachers they have.
I always say that. Yeah, I always say that.
At the end of the day, the board and I don't know. It's just it's disappointing. Very disappointing. And I'm hoping that maybe there's a reason. Maybe it'll all make sense someday. Mm-hmm. But right now, it doesn't, and I just don't understand. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for
joining us.
For coming here and trusting us with this. I know that it's not easy, and we really appreciate that you entrusted us with this. And
no, thanks.
We hope something comes of it. I don't really know what else to say.
We'll do our part and keep putting clips out so people understand what's going on.
Yes.
Sure. And if people want more information about kind of where we're at with looking at the special education preschool program and kind of what, could be available. I mean, I think that should be a conversation because it's when we're talking about preschool, you don't have your connections yet. A lot of people, they're new to the community. It's their first child. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I think that,
first child in special ed, in this arena, yes, you're absolutely right. So then if anybody, I think we can say that if you want more information, you can reach out to us at, Rachel at Eyes on EB or Rob, and we will forward your information to Kevin and get, whatever answers he may be able to give you. If anybody else wants to come on here, if anybody else has a story that, or something, that's what we're here, Voices of EB. That's exactly why we're here. So again, we thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you.